6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And formally welcome everyone. Welcome Sippy audience. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Fred Marquin. I am responsible for marketing and sales here at Sippy. Today with me I have Arthur Kamisny. He is our manager in charge of the support department. And I also have Ruslan Bigbayev. He is a senior engineer with the support team. And we are very happy that you can join us today for our live troubleshooting webinar. Today, we are very happy to go through a number of troubleshooting scenarios with you that we believe are going to be very helpful for you to get a sense of how to approach some of the issues that might come up with a soft switch every now and then. One of the things that we want to impress upon you is the level of knowledge and the level of technical ability that our engineering team has, particularly because we want to make sure that you know that you can rely on them by way of filing support tickets or just getting in contact with us directly, with me directly, or with Denise, one of the other sales team members. To share some of the expertise that the technical team has. So today, as I mentioned, we've got an agenda packed with some technical troubleshooting issues. I'll go through the agenda. At any point during the agenda, I might stop the guys to ask them a question or two, just to clarify some information and I guess speak on your behalf. But don't worry, at the end of the presentation itself, at the end of the webinar itself, you will be able to ask questions and your questions will be posted live and answered live here by the team. For now, let's go through what's on the agenda for today. So the troubleshooting scenarios that we are going to review today are missing CDRs, issues processing inbound calls via DID numbers, routing DID calls to accounts, that's the on-net scope that we're going to review, using accounts authentication rules instead of DID rules, and spikes on CPT graph, that's one that's actually somewhat concerning to some people, and I think that you'll find that one very interesting. System alerts, the type of alerts that you will get through the soft switch and how to make sure that you're getting those alerts. For now, I will leave you with Ruslan, who is going to go through the first set of slides and provide some of the information on how to troubleshoot missing CDRs. For now, here's Ruslan. Go ahead, Ruslan.
Good day, everyone. We are going to proceed with the first topic. Where are my CDRs? System processes call, but CDRs page is empty. While working with web UI, you may see the CDR page is empty or display only old CDRs. There are several tips for troubleshooting. First one is verify if new CDRs are being written. This can be done via web interface or via read-only database user if you have such. And first thing you should do is generate a report for 1 hour on web interface, then for 2 hours, then for 3 hours, so on. As soon as you find a time interval with records, refresh the report page several times. In such case, you can be able to compare the date of the last CDRs and the system date in upper corner. So if you see that new records are being added but with a delay, like on the screenshot, so it's our case. Let's proceed to the next screen. If CDRs are written with a delay, then check the system load. You can use monitoring web page to verify CPU, disk, and network load. This web page contains all needed information about the current load and system status. Of course, you can also use SNMP monitoring if it is configured on your system. but usually we use monitoring web page. This will allow you to, SNMP will allow you to receive up-to-date information about the state of the system without going to the web interface. So please, Fred, switch to the next tab. The main reason of CDRS delay is the disk subsystem load. So the next step is check the disk subsystem load using the monitoring graph or SNMP. The main parameters that you should pay attention is disk subsystem. The normal disk load value is considered to be up to 50–60%. The remaining 40–50% is a margin that is recommended to that is recommended in case of any unexpected additional load during your peak hours. However, as a rule, the load, if your server is balanced, the load should be in the region of 10–20%. So it also can be monitored with SNMP if it is configured on your system. Fred, please move to the next. Here we have verify if the backup is running by checking the selected time in the system parameters. First of all, you need to check the backup section on system parameters web tab. There will be a backup start time, which should be updated to match your off-peak time frame, because we strongly do not recommend performing the backup procedure while your system processes live traffic. This is very heavy task which use a lot of disk subsystem capacity and may lead to such issue on your system. So be careful choosing the date and time for backup creation. Please, next up. Check the system responsiveness by switching to different web tabs. The overall responsiveness of the system is also a very important parameter. If the system is overloaded, you will observe slow loading of web pages. On the screenshot, you can see the report web section. This section contains report web tabs with call records. Please try to switch between these tabs to verify system responsiveness. As a rule, page loading take around 5–7, maybe up to 10 seconds. If it is bigger, if loading is take more than 10 seconds, it's may be an issue. Please switch to the next tab. Of course, stop executing any heavy queries. To avoid additional load to the system, please make sure that you are not performing any heavy queries. For example, CDRS report for several months, as on the screenshot, even the smallest period may lead to real big disk subsystem load. Even a simple report for several days can create a lot of issues for the server and can be the reason of CDR writing delay. And of course, you can create a ticket to support.cpsoft.com to address this issue to us. We're always happy to help you with your system.
Thank you, Ruslan. So one of the things that Ruslan has emphasized there through the slides, the CDRs, the missing CDRs, is quite a common issue. And as you can see from the discussion that Ruslan had, is that sometimes the missing CDRs really is just a matter of checking on a few things to make sure, number one, that you're not overloading the system, right? So that you're running a heavy query, and that as a result of that running that heavy query, the CDRs are not actually generating. In some other cases, it's just a matter of making sure that you've selected the right time period or what have you. Having said that, CDRs, missing CDRs is, I think, one of the most common issues that the team troubleshoots on behalf of our users. So it's a good point. for that to be on here. And I think that Ruslan presented some of the most simple and first hands-on points to look at. Now we've got Arthur, and he's going to take us through a few other things. Go ahead, Arthur.
Thank you, Fred, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. The next topic in our list, why Sippy doesn't process the inbound call via the ZDID number. So while working with the ZDID numbers, a switch operator may detect some issues with the inbound calls. And the most efficient way to determine the reason for such an issue is test dial plan utility that should be the first place which switch operator should check before contacting to support team. So when a switch operator, actually this tool available in the main menu of the web UI, and it can be easily found via the search field on the web UI. So when the test dial plan utility page has been opened, the switch operator should select the not authenticated call mode for the DID numbers. Actually, when you're working with the test dial plan, you should understand that when you need to check the DID configuration, you should set not authenticated call mode. Also, a switch operator should specify the CLD number, which system will use for the authentication of incoming traffic. CLI, if it was configured in the authentication rules of the DID authentication rule, and the remote IP address from which inbound call will arrive to Sippy soft switch. Usually this is an IP of DID provider. So when everything has been fully filled in the parameters section, customer may click on the proceed button, and system should show the result of his configuration. If configuration and if match is found by system based on the filled by the customer in parameters data, system will show in the result the DID authentication rule and the DID field which system will use for the authentication of entered data. If this result hasn't appeared, you will see the error message. By the way, Fred, can you please click on the next slide? You will see the error call cannot be authenticated. Please specify the caller account or change input parameters. So the next step in the troubleshooting to check the incoming invite request from the DID provider and compare with entered by you input in the test dial plan page. Could you please, Fred, click on the next slide? The next page for the efficient troubleshooting is external firewall rules. Very frequently happen that customers setting in the firewall rule the blocking actually the subnet of a DID provider, which can be the reason for the issue with the inbound call. So we usually recommend for a switch operator to review all firewall rules and pay attention on SIP type and check if there is no deny rule for the subnet of the DID provider. If nothing is found, then we are moving to the next step in troubleshooting. Fred, could you please open the next slide? The next useful tool which you may use in your troubleshooting is network traffic capture. Using this tool, you may collect information directly from the network interface by specifying the target host. As a target host, you should specify the IP address of the remote device from which traffic will come to Sippy. Also, you have to specify the interface for your environment IP and the duration of traffic dump. Usually, there is no need to specify it more than 2 minutes. So after 2 minutes, system will stop collecting the data. And also, of course, you should specify the email address on which system will send you the collected traffic dump. And using the Wireshark third-party tool, you may investigate the received on your email backup file and check if Sippy soft switch received anything from your DID provider. If those steps didn't help you, don't worry, you may always create a ticket to support at sippysoft.com. Thank you.
So Arthur's gone through something that is also quite common. As I said at the beginning, one of the things that we want to do is go through some troubleshooting scenarios for things that we see kind of frequently as questions from our users. The DID question is something that also comes up frequently enough that we thought we would put it into this webinar. You have been able to see that by using the tools like the test dial plan tool, you'd be able to see the call flow and determine whether or not that is actually an issue with the soft switch itself, a hardware issue, or if it's an issue with how the system has been configured by you. At any point through that process of troubleshooting the issue yourself, obviously, and of course, you are more than welcome to file a ticket and just put it on us to figure out how to resolve it. The purpose of showing you what we do with troubleshooting these things, or helping you to recognize some of the things that you can do to troubleshoot, is so that you can spare yourself that time of having to come to us. If you can determine what it is rather quickly, then by all means, help yourself, right? For now, I guess that's it for Arthur, and Ruslan is going to do our next slide.
Yes, Fred, thank you. We're going to discuss the next topic. Why doesn't Sippy route inbound calls from DID to account routing on Netscope? The main reason is that the net routing is disabled. First of all, we need to check if a net routing is enabled on the appropriate routing group. Actually, how can you determine that it is disabled? You should use test-DL plan, as was mentioned by Artur, by me, in previous steps. So when you check the call flow via test-DL plan, you can definitely say that on net routing is disabled or enabled on the appropriate routing group. After that, please verify the routing group, and it is better to put the default value, and as on the screenshot, on net section, because custom value like custom connection and other options will create a lot of difficulties for investigation. So basically, you should use default value for this on net routing in appropriate routing group. Fred, please, next slide. Check the incoming routing at the account level if the call is to trunk or register account. So first of all, you need to go to the account webpage. As you can see on the screenshot, opposite each account, you will find the drop-down menu on the right side of the screen. In this menu, select the incoming routing item, and here you can define where calls will be sent from each of the assigned DID number. The call can be sent to a register account on net routing, or to a trunk. Since we're discussing the case with on-net calls, you need to set the register account value. Fred, please switch to the next tab. Okay. Check the call flow using the TestDL plan tool. This case has been already discussed in scope of previous theme. So the TestDL plan tool was specially created to define the cause of the routing issue. It is a very useful and powerful instrument to investigate and troubleshoot. It will immediately point you to the configuration error. So you just need to set full few input parameters, and you will see how your system will process the call. So always use this option before you trying to change your routing configuration and so on. So it's really cool thing. We always use it. Fred, switch to the next tab, please. Okay, and if on-net routing is disabled, actually a call between two accounts and ZDID numbers to register account will not go through. The system simply won't be able to send calls to itself, and you will see the error SIP 603 in case of no other routes defined in the appropriate routing group. As soon as you see such an error, you can test the call. Using the TestDL plan, and there you will find only that information how to fix it. You should enable on-net routing in routing group. So I guess it's all from my side.
Thanks, Ruslan. So one of the things that Ruslan just pointed out through this bit of the webinar is that in some cases, troubleshooting the issue can be as simple as making sure that the on-net routing enable button is clicked. So essentially, it's just a matter of selecting the on-net routing ability for the soft switch. So as you can see, while we deal with a lot of issues sometimes that can be quite complex and can require an actual engineer to work on, there are cases, this one for example, where it's a simple matter of selecting the on-net routing. So one of the things that the engineering team for Sippy Software has is a great deal of training, not only on the soft switch itself, but around SIP and VoIP as a functioning system. And so the value that the engineering team has to your operations is in providing that knowledge. So yeah, while it's simple to just simply tick a box saying allow on-net routing, the team has that knowledge and that ability to troubleshoot by knowing these things. In this case, we're sharing some of that knowledge with you. But as you can see, it's often something that can be quite simple for you to figure out. So with that, I think Arthur is next. Go ahead, Arthur.
Yes, Fred, thank you. So the next topic, why does my system use the ZDID authentication rule instead of the accounts rule? Could you please, Fred, click on the next slide? Actually, in the process of CP soft switch configuration, every operator should clearly understand the authentication logic which CP soft switch uses and follows. And in this topic, I would like to outline this process. CP system has a few places for the authentication rules configuration, and every of them has its own priority in the authentication chain. And on this slide, I have attempted to show you how actually this chain works. So when the inbound call comes to the CP soft switch, the very first place, and the highest priority has the DID pool section, and system tries to find the matched rule in this section. So it checks all authentication rules under the DID pool section, and if everything was checked and the matched rule not found, system tries to moves to the next chain that you see on this screenshot, and the next page is our accounts page, and system tries to find a suitable rule in the authentication rules section. If everything checked and the suitable rule not found, system moves to the next step and sends back to the remote IP address 401 unauthorized error with the www authentication information included into this response, and expects to get the answer from the remote and with the digest authentication. If nothing found, system will just decline this call. If the call has been authenticated via the digest, the next step is the authorization step. But let's continue with the next slide. Also, please pay attention to the accounts authentication rules. In the accounts authentication rules, we have an additional check while a system tries to find a suitable rule or matched rule. There is a big chance that system will find a few suitable rules, but the decision will be done based on the weight of each rule. As far as you know, you can't create the same authentication rule, so at least some difference should be in your rules. For example, you may create two rules with the same IP address, but those rules should have some extra authentication parameters like incoming CLI or incoming CLD. So you may create a combination between IP and the incoming CLI, or IP and like on the line 3, you see that in incoming CLI you may use the wildcard, and but this rule will have less weight than the exact numbers that you have specified in the incoming CLI of the first rule. And based on this weight, system will select the best possible authentication rule for the authentication. I suppose that's mainly it. Fred, could you please show the next slide?
Okay. Thank you, Arthur.
Yes.
So,
thank you.
One of the things that the soft switch allows you to do is to configure a number of rules so that your call requirements are actually able to be processed through the soft switch. So by doing that, we provide a lot of control. We provide you a lot of control. Now, what that means essentially is that you have to be able to not only understand how the authentications rules work, but also be able to monitor to make sure that the authentication rules that you are using are in fact being reflected by your call requirements and back and forth, so forth. I think Arthur shared some valuable information there in the first slide where we saw the different the 3 steps by which the calls go through in terms of the authentication. For now, I will leave you with Ruslan, who's taking the next set of slides. Go ahead, Ruslan.
Thank you, Fred. Now we're going to discuss the next topic. Why does my CPT graph show a spike periodically, and how can I address this? Thank you. First of all, verify the LRN response time on the appropriate graph. If you have an LRN server configured, then the LRN graph is the first thing to check. On the CPT graph, you will see the red line that shows the response time of the LRN server. If the LRN response time at the very top of this graphic, then it's most likely the reason. You should verify the LRN server response time and LRN server ability. Maybe it is not available at this time, so it's really important thing to verify. Compare the CPS value over the past week and check if there is a significant increase in traffic volume. In the CPT issue, if the CPT issue is observed for the first time, then it makes sense to compare the graphs for several days. In such way, you will define what changed. For example, the reason may be associated with a high CPS value, like on screenshot. Fred, switch to the next tab, please. The next step is compare the CPU load for the last few days. The same with CPU load. By compare the value over several days, you can easily define what exactly has changed in the system. CPS value, CPU load, LRN response time, and so on. All of these factors affect system performance and the CPT value. The last option is to verify the amount of proxy media traffic. The volume of proxy media traffic, most of all, load your system. How to say? It is the heaviest task for the system, I guess. When even a small increase in volume of proxy traffic will lead the server to load increase, and this will lead to increase in CPT value. So it is very important to verify the amount of proxy traffic. Fred, please, the next screen. And the most important, I guess, in this part, how can we resolve this issue, at least temporary, because usually it requires server change or something like this. Reduce the CPU usage by disabling media proxying if possible. As it was mentioned before, proxy and media traffic through a server is the most difficult task for the system, and its decreasing is one of the main way to reduce the system load without affecting calls. By disabling traffic proxying through the server, you force client to send traffic directly to each other, and as a result, the system has additional resources. Media traffic policy could be changed on account level, on routing group, and on connection level. You can see all this option on the screenshot, which was attached to this screen. Fred, please move to the next. Of course, if it doesn't help, we can reduce CPS value using CPS CC limits. This solution is designed to save only a part of the traffic, but at the same time increase the quality and efficiency of the call processing. Some of the call will be simply rejected by the system, but the other one will have more resources, more system performance to proceed it correctly. Fred, please move to the next tab. Simplify routing. This option, I guess not option, but this solution is some kind of additional way to release some system resources. Using shorter routing list in the routing group will simplify the routing process and free up additional resources. In the screenshot, you can see a large number of routes in the routing group. If you have such routing groups where some routing entries can be deleted, Then this will be simplify the routing process for the system. Fred, please switch to the next. And of course, it was already discussed, but it's also very important to verify the backup is running by checking the selected time in the system. It's pretty heavy task for the system to create a dump of the database and archive it with using the lot of CPU resources. The backup procedure required a lot of CPU time, so you should switch it to your peak time frame only. It cannot be launched during your peak hours. And of course, you can create a ticket to us. So I guess it's all from.
Thank you, Ruslan. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier is that there's a test dial plan tool that you can use to check the call flow of a particular call or set of calls, and you can also use that to make sure that your DID configurations are working the way you want to. In this case, you've been able to see that the team would use and recommends for troubleshooting simply to just take a look at your graphs, at the graphs available through the soft switch, and that by itself will tell you some information that you can then use to further troubleshoot issues. Like, for example, if your CPS spikes are causing an issue. In some cases, it may be a matter of having to replace your hardware. In other cases, it may just be a matter of reaching your CPS limits. So having an awareness of where your graphs are allows you to do at least some initial troubleshooting, which you can then build a case for further troubleshooting. You can also use that information that you gather to share it with the support team and let them know that you've looked at the CPT graphs and that perhaps there is an issue with your CPS. And, perhaps help us get some deeper understanding of what your issue might be. We also mentioned the fact that you can choose to pass media between your customers directly. We also have a media gateway that you can use to do that. So as part of troubleshooting, we can help you with the troubleshooting, and in that, help you determine whether or not it's your hardware that perhaps needs to be replaced if you're hosting the switch yourself, or perhaps your hardware is fine, but you could use some help by way of media proxying through our media gateway. I think Arthur's got the next set of slides. Go ahead, Arthur.
Thank you, Fred. Your summary was awesome.
It always is.
Let's move to the next slide. Next topic, what alerts does CP soft switch support? There are a number of system alerts on the back end of the CP soft switch which are not visible for switch operators via the web interface, but might be useful for self-hosted customers. But customers should be aware that most of alerts don't require any input from customers, and the only thing that needs to be done by the customers I will describe in the future slides. On the current stage, let's probably discuss what scripts CP supports on the backend to inform customer about some hardware or software issues. The very first script checks the number of DB connections. The normal number of DB connections is between 0 and 1,400 connections to the database. This is a well-tuned parameter which is hard-coded. And if customer received an alert about the big number of DB connections, it's reasonable to check, for example, the number of environments, because usually such an issue happens when you create too many environments in your CP soft switch. So because every environment creates their own scripts, and those scripts are requesting an access to the DB, and due to this fact, the DB number of connections is growing. So this you should pay attention on that. Also, the number of environments is can be different for each server and depends mostly from the hardware that switch operator use. The next script is monitoring of failover. So when failover is triggered, a switch operator should receive an email on his own mailbox. So system should inform switch operator about the failover which was triggered, and most probably in this case your services were moved to the standby system. Next script is rate check. It uses this script uses the gmirror utility, and it works not with all types of rates, mostly with the software rate, but for some cases it may be useful. Next script is swap script, which checks the swap usage and notifies switch operator about the critical level of swap. This is a reason for customer to think about increase of RAM on his hardware, on his server, or contact to Sippy Support department to review some internal scripts which may probably create some heavy swap. So this is also a very important script for the management of hardware health. Next script is disk space script, which checks the disk space and notifies also about the critical levels. Switch operator may ask support team to specify a few levels for the notification of a switch operator about an issue with disk space. For example, when the level of 18% of occupied space is reached, a switch operator may receive an alert, first alert. When 90% of space is occupied, a switch operator will receive another alert. And for example, when system detects that the 98% of space is occupied, the third alert will be sent to a switch operator. I suppose this is a very useful scripts for monitoring of your hardware and software, and feel free to create tickets if you need some assistance in this. We are always open to help you with the configuration. And the last script in this list is a script which controls the replication. So if your replication was dropped due to the network issues, for example, you will also receive an alert on your mailbox. Fred, could you please click on the next slide? Why don't I receive system alerts? This is a very frequent question, and there are a number of solutions to avoid those issues. And the first place which switch operator should carefully check is my preference menu of the root customer. I'm paying your attention that those fields which marked in red will be seen only under the root customer preference menu. So switch operator should open this page and specify the mail from header. By default, the system uses nobody at localhost as a from field. This from field switch operator will see when he will receive his on his email an alert, and in from field he will see this actual header. So we usually recommend to replace this default value to the email address of the mailbox which switch operator use, and on which he will receive those alerts. In this case, the custom SMTP server will not block the emails from Sippy switch. Otherwise, very frequently we detected that the nobody at localhost mail from header is blocked by the custom SMTP server. So better to use some real email in this field. And the second field on this page, which switch operator should specify, is an email. So this field will be used for the so on this email, switch operator will receive all alerts from Sippy switch. So please specify the suitable email, and the Sippy switch will send all alerts on this email. Could you please, Fred, open the next slide? What should be the next step in the troubleshooting? The next step, switch operator should open the SMTP, should open the system parameters page in the main menu, and find the SMTP server section on that page. If you see that system uses the default parameters like localhost, it's reasonable to specify your own SMTP settings, and in this case system will use those settings for sending emails on your own mailbox, or to the mailbox actually which you specified in the My Preference menu. So when all configurations are done in this section, switch operator should click on the test button, and using this test button he may test his SMTP server by sending a test email, which he may also, by the way, specify in the opened window after the clicking on this test button. So the target email will be the target email will receive this test email, but if this step didn't help, I suppose the next step you should contact to support@sippysoft.com. Everything else should be done by our team. Thank you.
So thanks, Arthur. So one of the things that we've kind of gone through, and it's appeared on a few occasions through the webinar, is that some of the troubleshooting tips are kind of basic, right? In some cases, it's a matter of taking a look at your graphs to see if you have some unexpected CPS spikes. In other cases, it's a simple matter of making sure that the call flow that you set up is the call flow that you actually require. As Arthur mentioned in this last set of slides, in some cases, troubleshooting an issue is something as simple as making sure that the address that you've put in for receiving your alerts is in fact the email address that you want to receive your email alerts from at. So these troubleshooting tips aren't something that are earth-shattering by any means, and as I mentioned earlier, a lot of these tips aren't for complex issues. The purpose of showing you that some of these things are quite simple to troubleshoot is to let you know, as I mentioned, not only that oftentimes we have some users of our switch that panic And it's quite understandable. You don't know the system inside and out the way that the engineers on our support team do. But in some cases, it's simply a matter of slowing down, taking a look at what you're actually dealing with, and finding out some of the tools that are part of the soft switch itself that will help you troubleshoot the issue yourself. We have got a few minutes to take some questions. I know that a few questions have come through. Claude is online with us, guys. Claude, we were talking about you earlier. We were saying what a good guy you are. And Claude's got a question. Let me see if I can read it here. I'm not sure if the guys will be able to answer this right now, Claude. Also, there was a previous question earlier from Amir. If the question you're asking is a question that requires the guys right now to go through how to configure the switch or anything like that, we just can't answer that because it might actually be too long for us to try to do that right now. But I'll read the question that Claude has, Arthur. Perhaps you can give us just a very quick, very quick answer. He said, he's a nice guy, so he says, hello all. How to use the late setting for DIDs?
Actually, the late setting, late DID recognition means that your DID number will be used via the existing account, for example. So when you need the DID to be triggered directly from inside of Sippy by some other entity in the Sippy like account. So you may use, so in the late recognition process, Sippy uses not the DID authentication section, but the DID field, actual DID field. So you should call to the DID number specified in the DID field. And please note that DID number in the DID field may be different with the incoming CLD DID number in the authentication rule. This is an important point, and please be aware of that.
Awesome.
I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Arthur. So, Claude, if we didn't get a chance, if that wasn't the answer perhaps that you were looking for, by all means, you've got my Skype name so that you can reach out to me on Skype. You can email me, or you may call me, or you may create a support ticket. We're always happy to get those. It keeps the guys employed, okay? So that's a very good thing. I think Amir also has a question here. He wants to know, and again, Arthur, same thing. If it's not something that you can easily answer through here, then just let me know. Amir's question is, please explain how to reject calls with 503 code.
How to reject calls with 5 and 3 code. Well, let me think on that. Actually, you may just create some more complicated authentication rule using a few fields, and the system will match only the remote IP CLI and CLD that you have specified. But if you need some more complicated design, I think better to discuss it via the ticket.
Okay, thank you, Arthur.
By the way, in some cases, customers may use accounts authentication rules instead of DID authentication rules for the authentication, and in some cases it give more flexibility for customer to deal with the inbound calls. Anyway, if I didn't cover your question, we may discuss it via the ticket.
Thank you, Arthur. So, Amir, I hope that answers your question. Like I said, if it doesn't, feel free to either give me a call on the 1855 number, or send me an email. we'll do obviously our best to get you some help. If you're listening to us, if you're watching us, and you don't have a support agreement with us, don't worry. Today we are helping and providing support by way of the webinar to anyone who has previously purchased our software. So you don't have to have a support agreement live in order to ask you questions, but you do have to get a support agreement live if you want us to help you on a regular basis. So today everybody is equal. Equality is our game today. Let's see. Amir says that we did answer his question, so that's good. I think that that basically is it in terms of questions that we can tackle right now. If anyone does have a question, by all means, please post it. Otherwise, we'll give it a couple more minutes, and I think we'll call it a show. We'll give it a minute. In the meantime, guys, I know that we talked about some of the frequent issues that we see, and in previous webinars we've talked about some tips for configuring your system. We've done, if you haven't seen the webinars on a regular basis, Sippy audience, you should know that we've done a number of these webinars to try to show you and train you by way of the webinars to do some of these troubleshooting things on your own. Not because we can't handle them or because we don't want to help you, but because oftentimes we recognize that you want to do things on your own. In those cases, we want to show you as much as possible so that you are comfortable with the soft switch, with the configuration settings, and so that you can do things on your own. Today, as you've been able to see, we've gone through a number of these troubleshooting tips. We hope that you are, if you're not, if you don't have a support agreement, at least you should know that we've got a very well covered set of articles in our support documentation portal. So as a user of our system, as a past customer or as a current customer, you have at your disposal a number of resources that will help you. Primary resource is the support team who is there to answer your questions, particularly, especially, and exclusively if you pay the support agreement costs. And in addition to that, you can contact the sales team. The sales team will do their best to provide some assistance. And number three, if you have access to the internet, obviously you can go to the support documentation. We also have a number of webinars that you can look at in YouTube that will provide you some helpful hints for troubleshooting things or configuring the switch yourself. Let's see. I think we've got another question from William DeCoco. Where do I enter my customer's authentication IP address? Can we quickly answer that? We don't have a lot of more time left, but Arthur?
Actually, you may enter it in authentication rule under accounts section, or you may specify it in the DID section authentication rule. So it depends actually on your needs. If you plan to authenticate the inbound calls from the DID provider, probably better for you to use the DID pool section and use authentication rule under the DID pool section. If it's just a wholesale scenario, we always recommend use accounts authentication rules. But if you need more details and assistance in this, you may contact support@sippysol.com.
Awesome.
We are
Thank
always
you.
happy to help you.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Arthur. And thank you, William, for your question. Sippy audience, I think we've come to the end of our webinar for today. Please keep an eye open for more emails from us. We are always doing these webinars. We've been doing about at least one per month. We are aiming to do more, but we are committed to doing at least one per month where we talk about various things. The next webinar that we've got planned is for hardware, dealing with hardware type of issues. I'm hoping to have one of our most senior team members, Alex, on the webinar. Alex hasn't been in one of these before. He's a very good guy, so I hope he will join us and that you will join us for our next webinar. For now, on behalf of Ruslan, on behalf of Arthur, the support team, and the entire team at Sippy, we thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again. Thank you.
We wish you a good day. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.